Alright, what's going on, guys? Thank you guys for tuning in to my fifth episode already. We're at about 250 viewers already through 2 or 3 weeks. And today we got with me Heather Wilde. She's a multiple award-winning six-time CTO. I could go on and on about who you are, but I'm gonna just let you explain about it because I'm looking at your page right now, and we'll go over quite a few things about that. But thank you for coming on, Heather. Uh,
Hi,
so yeah.
hi, I'm happy to be here.
So I'll start out with where are you from, and what was your first job? Like, do you consider yourself an entrepreneur? Because you have a lot of stuff on your resume.
No one's actually asked me what my first job was, so that's kind of fun. So I'm from New York City. I grew up on the East Coast. I'm from New York. I was born in Staten Island, and then I moved to New Jersey. And my first job ever was at Six Flags. Uh, so some of you, especially the teenagers among us, know what Six Flags is. It's a chain of amusement parks, and I worked at Six Flags Great Adventure in the recording studio. So I worked the mixer board to record people singing to karaoke so that they'd have their own, actually at that time it was cassette tape version of whatever the popular song was at the time. So, I mean, when I was doing it, it was like Whitney Houston's I Will Always Love You and
Yeah.
Backstreet Boys stuff and things. But, um, but yeah, so that was an awesome first job to have. And I did that for 2 years over the summers. And uh, it really was it was something that was important to me because I was in technology. I got my first computer when I was 8 years old, and I was programming and building
Oh,
stuff. I
at 8 years old.
well, at eight, and now that doesn't seem that uncommon now. I mean,
Yeah.
computers are everywhere, but back then, I mean, that was 1984. That's like the year of Apple, like the big. I mean, so I had a PC. I mean, because the
Mm-hmm.
computer wars were happening, and nobody had computers. No one like the. So I had a computer at home, and I could use it all the time. And I was spending weekends at Radio Shack and at junkyards getting parts to build my own robots and things. And
As
again,
like a teenager.
well, I mean, from eight and on. And again, this doesn't sound uncommon now. This is
Yeah.
like what kids are growing up as now. But imagine a normal kid's life now, but transplant that back to the 1980s. And before we had cell phones, before we had Google, before there was anything like that. If I wanted to learn something, I'd have to go to the library, or just think of it myself. So I'm the generation that created Google because we didn't have it because we were
Yeah.
annoyed.
Yeah. Did you? What was your family's background? Were they into technology? What got you into that in the first place? Because that seems kind of odd how you started from such a young age getting into technology the way you did.
Again,
What influenced you to do that?
again, that's no one's ever asked me that. So my mom was a school teacher, um, but both my parents were in the military. Both of them, both my mom and my dad were Vietnam War era vets um, in the Army. And my dad, when he came out, he became an accountant. But one of the things that he always talked about was how he was putting together reel-to-reel audio uh, decks so that he could
Yeah.
record letters because he didn't write, but he would record notes to my mom and send them home while he was overseas. And
That's
so
pretty
he would
cool.
he would take scraps from the bases that he was on, and then he put together some reel to reels, which he still has, and did that. And we had them all over the house, and we had the stacks of reel to reels too. I have
Yeah.
them in the closet actually in here.
That's awesome.
Um, and then my mom, she was a voracious reader. She read books like we had a library, like every wall was covered with books.
Wow. Yeah.
So between the two of them, I was just I was set up to become somebody that was just an uber geek.
Did you grow up like if you had such a big library? Did you have like favorite books? Did you read a lot of the books your parents were reading at a young age?
Yes. So my I always loved science fiction. Um, my favorite book when I was a kid was A Wrinkle in Time, which I was so happy when they made that into a movie finally. Um, and oh, I loved things like The Phantom Toll Booth, and which is a lost favorite. So if you haven't read that, you should go out and read that. Um, and and then when Douglas Adams started publishing Hitchhiker's Guide and the radio plays started coming out, I
Yeah.
loved the Hitchhiker's Guide and all of that. So those were pretty high on my list. But I also read things like Moby Dick, and I didn't appreciate them as much until I was in college. But I read F. Scott Fitzgerald and all of those too.
Do you think reading as a kid influenced you into like your career as an adult?
Absolutely. I still read 3 hours a day,
Three
every
hours
day.
a day.
Yeah, the last thing I do every day is I pull out my Kindle and I get into bed and I read. Like um, I don't watch much TV, which again isn't very uncommon nowadays. I mean,
Yeah.
most kids don't even have TVs anymore. They'll watch stuff on YouTube and stuff. So I was ahead of my time. I've always been ahead of my time. But I will, yeah, I pull out my Kindle and I'll read until I fall asleep. And uh, usually 3 hours is enough to get at least halfway through a book. But
Yeah.
um, because the work that I do is so tech heavy, is so business non-fiction-y, I still read like science fiction and fiction books every night. So
Yeah. That's where your heart is still.
yeah.
What did you do after Six Flags? Like, what opportunities grew out of that?
So nothing grew out of Six Flags directly. That was a summer job, but
Yeah.
I went on to NASA, and I was studying to be an astronaut. But my health wasn't good enough to go into space, so I switched over to programming satellites for the Navy. Um, and
How did
then
they find out about you? Like, did you
how
send
did
in a
NASA?
resume like, "Hey, I do programming. Have me
Um,
hire me"?
Sort of. It actually, I mean, I pretty much went to NASA and said, I want to be there. I want to go to here, and I wouldn't let them take no for an answer.
Yeah.
And yeah, so they uh, when you don't give up, they let you in.
That's good.
They, well, I found mentors that would that guided me on the right path, and I
Like
was
in
just
that industry.
actually they weren't, but they were because I really wanted to do it. There were a lot of people that were very encouraging, and they figured out amongst them what I needed to do to get there. And it was a village of people that basically figured out what I needed, like what grades I needed, what classes I needed to take, who I needed to meet, and so on to get me to NASA in the first place. And then pretty much since then, um, everything I've done, it's been through making sure I increase my luck surface area.
Mm-hmm.
So by meeting the right people. So if I want to do something, I just make sure I do the research. I find out who do I need to know, what do I need to be.
So did
Uh,
you like seek out these mentors or did they find you? And
Combination.
combination? Like how
Yeah.
many mentors did you have? Do you know?
Oh,
A lot.
yeah. I mean, you can't really define a number on that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like the first mentor I had, for example, is my dad. I mean, just under like seeing him, even though he was exhausted from work every week, come home and still take me to the junkyard, take me to Radio Shack with bags under his eyes, like with his like really excited daughter like wanting to go out, and he'd do it anyway even though he knew he was tired. Like that's mentorship, and
Yeah.
there were so many people in my life that they took their time to guide me in little and big ways.
What was the the biggest like truth bomb or like influential thing one of your mentors has said or shown you?
Um, there are no stupid questions, only people stupid enough not to ask them.
I've actually heard something like that too from my old boss. Actually, I like that one.
Yeah, that one stuck with me a long time because I'm someone that I'm an introvert, so I liked,
Hmm.
and I may not seem it while I'm talking to you, but I like to stay back, and um, I used to be the person that wanted to appear to be the smartest in the room. So I would only speak up if I knew the right answer.
Yeah.
And then I realized that there's learning in being wrong
Hmm.
too.
Definitely.
And if I don't know the answer, then there's probably a lot of people that don't either. Or if I'm thinking something and then I might as well ask the question because there's probably other people that are also not speaking up that don't know. And if you don't ask, then how are you going to find out?
Yeah. That kind of really would have helped me later on in school if I just started doing that. I was an introvert. I mean, I still am an introvert. So I would only answer a question if I like genuinely knew the answer, or if I was just having like a bad day or something, or just I didn't feel like talking. People were annoying me in class or something. I just like tell someone else the answer for them to raise their hand because I didn't feel like talking,
Yeah.
just like a friend or something. But that's kind of like I mentioned it in another podcast. If you want to, I think it was in my last podcast or and my first one maybe. I mentioned kind of like my background with school and how it's never like worked out for me, but
Oh.
I'm glad it didn't.
Well, my fiance, he actually went through. His name is Matthew Renzi. He's the top-selling data science con author on Pluralsight. If you're into development, so a
Yeah.
lot of people know who he is. Um, School didn't work out very well for him the first time around.
Hmm.
He was told. I think he might have even been told he had a learning disability because he wasn't doing very well. And so he listened to those people and then ended up screwing up in college. But then at some point in his life, he was like, wait a second, this isn't true. I think I just had bad teachers or bad advice. And then he went back and now he has 6 degrees.
Wow.
So,
Six. One is
yeah.
enough for me. Six. Jeez. So that's pretty cool. Um, I kind of want to get into like what did NASA do for you? You said you were programming for them, right?
So I was training to be an astronaut.
Yeah.
And what when when I found out that I couldn't go into space, I they moved me around a little bit. Um, I started working on like random projects, and then I told them that I wanted to leave. I was living in Alabama at the time, and I said that I just wanted to get out of there. I wanted to be away from the actual flying into space training
Mm-hmm.
people. So I went to a different. I moved to Maryland, and are the Naval Research Labs and also Goddard Space Flight Center. So I went to work at the Naval Research Labs and started programming microprocessors inside satellites for mapping guidance systems. So uh, the things that basically have become Google Maps, um, and that was really good for me at the time because I was pretty much working by myself in a room with a machine
Yeah.
when I needed my thoughts because I'd been working so hard to become an astronaut and I couldn't be.
Hmm.
So
Was that like
now
really tough for you?
it was really tough. I mean, I when you find out that the one thing that you want above all else, the thing that is your reason for being, you no longer have,
Yeah.
is it's really hard, and um, a lot of people never pull out of that.
Hmm.
And I was glad that I was able to make my peace and come through it. Um, but one of the things that I've always done is throw myself into work. And if I didn't have work to do, I don't know how well I would have done then.
All right. So you just kind of like what do you mean throw yourself into work? Like a job or just you experiment with things you're interested in or what?
Uh, I need a project.
A project.
Yeah, and it doesn't, and you see this a lot with like people that they retire
Hmm.
and then like they've been working for their entire lives and then they don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And the ones that come through, like the ones that are okay, are ones that suddenly like take up gardening or learn how to play mahjong or something like
Yeah,
that.
or
Like,
golf.
yes, yeah, exactly. Like for me, it was like everything was NASA, and until it wasn't,
Hmm.
and then they gave me something else to do, and and then in doing that, I started to be able to think for myself again, which I hadn't done for a very long time.
Yeah.
So it was good. It was really good for me to be able to be by myself and start to become a whole person again.
That all came from working with NASA and Navy.
Yeah.
All right. I'm still looking at at I have your page screenshot on my phone right here. I'm trying to decide which one I want to go to
There's
next.
so many things.
Um, all right. How about you're an author then, right?
Yes.
What tell us about how many like have you written one book or I honestly didn't do too much
Yeah.
research into this
No,
part, so I apologize.
that's fine. I'm working on my fourth book right
Your
now.
fourth book?
Yeah. So the when I was young, seeing all those books in my mom's library and all through the house, I'd always imagined that someday I'd see my name on a book jacket, and then I'd have a Moby Dick or something like that of my own, you know. And so I always knew that at some point I'd write a book,
Mm-hmm.
and then I wrote one, and then I'm like, oh, that wasn't so hard.
Yeah.
Then I wrote another one.
When did you
And,
write your first book? And
um,
what was it?
so my first book, I wrote about the creation. It was a combination of the hardest part of how to start a company while working on making sure my relationship with my ex-husband didn't fall apart. Which, while saying ex-husband, you can see how that
Yeah.
turned.
Yeah.
But at the time, it actually was. I mean, we for the snapshot of time for that book, it was um, it was a good working relationship. So it it was the book itself is a it was very helpful to write because it got out a lot of things that were important to work out,
Yeah.
and and yeah, so that was good. I wrote that, I think, 4 years ago. Yeah.
And you so basically a book a year, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Did the first book like how did it do?
So um, so that one I actually haven't published like wide scale.
Yeah.
I've done like private readings of it, and um, there's about like 300 copies out there of it that I and like everybody that has read it has loved it. Um, but I haven't, like, I just did a very, very small printing of it on purpose. Um, and again, my fiance says I'm stubborn for not releasing it further, but they do say that your first book is usually your worst book.
Yeah.
So
Is that the case then?
well, I'm gonna hold reserve judgment on that one until I keep writing. So
All right. Like for me, um, writing, like I've always been a really good reader and writer. So I have a list of goals, a list of top 10 goals with timelines to have them done by. And having a New York Times bestseller is one of them. So I'm confident that I can do it because that was always the thing I could go on and on about doing throughout school. Like English and writing was like the only class I got like A's in. So
well, Christopher Palinelli was about your age when he got his first New York Times bestseller. So
yeah, my goal is to have it within like 4 or 5 years. I have to
there you
look
go.
back at the list, but it'll happen. So what you've won awards for?
A
Uh,
lot of things.
yeah. Why don't you talk about what awards you've gotten? And yeah,
Um,
I'm
so
curious.
I've gotten actually awards for my writing. I've gotten awards for being a business coach, for being a mentor. One of the ones I'm proudest of is I got an award for my work with children in teaching them STEM education.
Oh yeah,
So I got a congressional commendation for that.
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. So I've I it I'm mostly the thing, like I get nominated for awards frequently, whether I win them or not, and I think the it's it really is an honor to be
Mm-hmm.
nominated for these things because I'm always so overwhelmed that there are people out there that know who I am and that are nominating me because they appreciate my work and see what I'm doing. So, especially as an introvert who just wants to hide like like in her bed all the time under the covers
Yeah.
just typing on the computer. So, so somebody out there likes me.
So being an introvert, how did you become being a speaker? Like, I'm assuming that's one of your biggest challenges you've had to face.
Yeah, so that actually was an accountability assignment I got from my coach because I took a job as a CTO and a chief technology officer, and as a CTO, I have to present and communicate with clients and board members and people like that. So one of the things that one of my biggest weaknesses is assertiveness. I'm assertive only when a crisis comes in, or it only shows up really. I mean, I'm very good in a crisis. The
Yeah.
rest of the time, I'm perfectly happy to be hands off. So, what my coach decided was that I should go out and start speaking so that I could raise my assertiveness level. I'm not sure if that worked the way he wanted to because what he didn't realize is there's not that many female CTOs. So I
Yeah.
started to be in demand as a speaker. So I got really good at public speaking.
That's good. Like, have you ever what was the biggest challenge about public speaking? Like speaking in front of like all right, like what's the largest amount of people you've had to speak in front of? Or
Oh, um, probably 15,000.
15,000? Was it like at an arena or
Yeah,
like what
yeah.
arena or what was it for?
So I was, so this actually wasn't recent. This was when I was a kid. But um, I had to give an address to my state in New Jersey at I don't even remember what it was like specifically for, but I just had to get in front of the Garden State. Um, I think they've changed the name again, but it was the New Jersey Bowl, whatever it was called then, and
Yeah.
just get on stage and talk to a whole bunch of people about it was about STEM.
How old were
related
you
thing.
when you did that?
16.
Was that like your first speaking event, or just like your first like major one?
That was the first major one.
So, did you like how long did you speak for? Cause I feel like the longer you do it, the more comfortable you'll start get. Cause I've spoken in front of some like few hundred people, and that was like the case with me. Like it's always the first minute or two I
Oh,
have the most like uh fear, I guess.
so I think with me, it's as long as I'm prepared ahead of time, then like I don't ever get scared until I get off stage.
Oh really?
It's more um and the thing that gets into me is I hope they don't come up to me. I hope they don't come up to me.
Yeah.
But and it's not because I don't like people, it's because I'm always afraid that somebody's going to ask me a question about something that is just not in my wheelhouse, like that I made them think of something that's tangential to something and I just don't know the answer, and then they're going to then think that I don't know anything about what I just said. So
Yeah.
it's kind of catch 22.
How often do you speak in front of people? Like, do you do trainings like in person?
Yeah, so the past couple of years, I've done roughly like a conference, event, workshop, something once, like roughly every week.
Every week?
Um, yeah, on average. This year, I've cut back majorly because I'm planning my wedding and my own conference. So those two things take up a lot of time. So I'll probably only have about 20 events this year as opposed to 50.
Post to what? 50?
Yeah.
Okay. What's your current project right now? Like, what are you working on right now?
Uh, so like besides like my companies that I am in charge of.
Let's talk about that actually.
Okay.
Let's talk about the companies you're in charge of. What are they?
Yeah. So there's Rocketeer, which is it's a consulting firm that helps businesses and entrepreneurs to grow and be more successful through coaching and consulting. So that's my main company. Then my alternate project that I'm working on is TWIP, which is Travel with Interesting People. It is uh, it's a data analytics company that matches up. It uncovers people's travel personality, and then it helps to match people together so that they can travel with other people that they didn't know. So solo travelers traveling together.
That's actually really neat because um, I've traveled with EF tours uh, back in, I don't know, 11th grade, I think it was, 10th or 11th grade, and we went to the UK. And after I got back, I was like, I want to travel more, but I don't know how I feel traveling with like
Those people.
30 to 40 other people.
Yeah.
It's a bit uncomfortable. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I'm
So
comfortable with, like, it doesn't matter who I'm around as long as I know a little bit about them. Like, I can grow to people, if that makes sense.
So one of so in conjunction with TWIP, we're my conference, Antarcticonf, which is like another project that's taking up a big part of my time. We're doing a conference in Antarctica, and this is on a cruise ship. So it's a 16-day event, um, or a 16-day tour, with a 4-day conference in the middle of it. And we've got people that are traveling with their families, but then we've also got some solo people that uh, need to be matched up with roommates. And because we've got our like travel algorithm to create travel personalities, we're able to match up these complete strangers together who can then be on a ship cabin, which is very tiny. It's
Yeah.
smaller than this room that I'm in, for 16 days and not kill each other. So it's pretty cool.
That, I've seen things like that on, like, TV shows or movies. Just, like, a random part of it is I forgot what it was. I think it was, like, the Blacklist or something. I don't know if you know that show,
Yeah. Yeah.
but there's an episode of like the um, it's like a recent episode where they would pair like actors you could have like be your pretend to be your girlfriend or a family member or a cousin, or you can fake a wedding with them, like, and you just find the perfect fit for you or whatever. That it kind of reminds me of that. So other than that, I haven't really heard of anything else like that. So I'm assuming this is pretty like revolutionary.
Yeah, pretty much. The my partner Lauren Koenig, she used to work for a tour company like the one that you went on, and she identified that there were 10 different travel personalities that people kind of fall into, and that's different from like your demographics. So it doesn't matter if you're 16 or 60, you still may be an Epicurean, somebody that travels because you love food.
Mm-hmm.
And so like we could pair up like a 16 and a 60-year-old on the same trip and they would have a blast. And um, I mean, and it doesn't matter where you're from. Like you might not even speak the same language, but we could send you on the same trip and the two of you would get along splendidly.
Yeah.
So I mean, we're kind of stacking the deck with the Antarctica trip because
Yeah.
like everybody already is kind of the same travel personality because
Yeah.
like they all want to go to Antarctica. So that's a very specific niche right there.
Yeah.
But
Sounds like you could use it for like dating apps too.
so yeah, I mean, dating apps that always gets brought up, and dating apps could certainly layer it on top. But you know, the number one reason that people actually go on dating apps is to find a friend, not even
Yeah.
somebody. So there aren't apps out there that people can go on and say, no, really, I'm looking for just a friend.
Yeah, that would be kind of weird.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess like Bumble does that. I think there's
Yeah,
like,
now they do. Now
yeah,
they do.
so that
But
makes it a little different.
I think at some point, even like Bumble's friend personality one is going to end up like inundated with guys trying to creep on girls.
Yeah, it's already happening. I'm sure of it. um. All right, I'm curious, like, what your goals were like as a kid. Like, you wanted to be an astronaut. What did you have like a list of goals you wanted to accomplish later on in life that you have accomplished, and
So
others that haven't been accomplished yet?
So we were actually just talking about this weekend. So I wanted to be an astronaut, which even though I didn't go into space, I got to NASA. I
Yeah.
got to train. So I'm calling that one a check. I I wanted to write a book. Um, I I wanted to I I I wanted to have my name on a patent, and I did that last year.
That's pretty
So
cool.
yeah,
What was it for?
it's actually for writing the algorithm behind the travel matching.
Oh, okay.
So and like I've actually been involved in a couple of patents, but this was the first one that I've gotten named on. So this was really cool. Um, and and most of all, I wanted to be involved in something that would live on beyond me.
So
So
you could like so you could create a legacy, right?
yeah, but not necessarily. Like I never wanted necessarily to have my name attached to it. I just wanted to be like there, be
Yeah.
there when it happened. Because like I grew up with people talking about Woodstock. I grew up with people talking about um, uh, seeing um, the moon landing and stuff like that. So I wanted to be part of something greater than me, and it's so one of the things that I've done in my life is I try to travel around the world to experience things. Like I've been to the site of the Berlin Wall. I've been to Dachau and seen the concentration camps. I've been to the pyramids to see them, and like I've gone. So like my main things are that I wanted to do as a kid are like I'm still checking them off. I'm still I mean I like helped to build not one but $2 billion companies.
Yeah.
So I've published not just books but games that people played around the world. So I and I'm like I've won awards that will live on beyond me. So
So you've
I'm
already done a lot of what you planned on doing.
yeah. Yeah, so now where I'm turning to is to help other people to live their dreams, to push them to get their stuff done. And it's it's really a um, it's really an interesting mind shift when you realize that like you've already done it. So now let's just you can live your entire life just helping people.
Yeah. How different or what? How is it? All right, this is hard to for me to phrase it, but like, what what is the difference? I guess between you actually doing something and teaching other people how to get their goals planned out and figured out, and for them to accomplish it. Like, how? What are the challenges with that?
So the main challenge is you can't teach someone if they don't want to learn it. So what one of the things that I'm so glad that I did was get trained as a coach, and then get trained as a coach in four different other ways, so that I could come at it in multiple different angles. Because I understand now that like you can't just learn something and then go to somebody and say, "Oh my God, I know this thing, and now you have to know this thing too."
Yeah.
Because people are not ready to learn stuff. We learn in all different ways at all different times, and sometimes people are happy living in their bubble
Mm-hmm.
their entire lives, and they never will come out of it. And you have to be happy for them to be happy in their bubble. And that's like, you can't go your whole life being upset that someone else is happy. If they don't want to grow because they don't know that there's anything to grow to, that's okay.
Yeah.
But as soon as you start asking questions, that's where I can come in, because I can ask you more questions to expand upon what you're asking, and
Mm-hmm.
then help you to learn. And rather than me teaching you something, I can help you to teach yourself, help you to find the answers that you're seeking.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look back at this and quote you because you're giving really good advice. I hope a lot of people get this, review this, and learn from this. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
So I want to get into what I want to know what game you published with THQ
Ah,
that you worked with or worked on or
okay.
made. I don't know.
Yeah, a couple of them. So the first one, Cron X, which just had its 25th anniversary, and is about to be re-released. Um, Now, this was the first online multiplayer card game. So anyone out there, Cron X does have its strong, loyal following even after all these years. And so I bet you that somebody out there that is a Cron X player
Yeah,
is watching this. So holla.
my dad
Um,
probably.
Another one was WWE with Authority, which was the first online game for the WWE. And then we also did Star Trek Conquest Online, which was the first online Star Trek multiplayer game. And that was a fun one to work on as well. And those are the ones that I worked on for THQ. I also worked on some games for Disney, Pirates of the Caribbean, multiplayer mobile, and a couple of other games that people probably haven't even heard of. So,
What was your role, your main role when working on these?
so I was a community engineer. So what I did was I listened to the customer, listened to the players, and took their advice took their feedback in what was going wrong, and what they liked, and then worked that into updates into the games because we were able to release patches, release new cards,
Mm-hmm.
things like that. Um, and then for Star Trek specifically, I actually designed a a module for the game completely and released that, and that became the most popular mod for the game.
That's really cool. Have you always been a gamer then? Like, I don't know.
Yes, but not in the same kinds of games that people play today. So my favorite games growing up were from a company called Infocom, and you should look that up when we get off of this,
Yeah.
because you can actually play all of the Infocom games online still. Um, they they were text-based adventures, including the Zork series, which that may ring a bell,
Yeah.
and one of my dreams, which another one, it was like life goal checked off, was to work with the guys from Infocom. And when I worked on the Disney Pirates of the Caribbean game, I actually got to work with the team from Infocom. So
That's
that
awesome.
was that was really cool. And Infocom published the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy game. So I got to indirectly work with Douglas Adams.
Is that all right? I guess. Let's see. Are you working on any other games? Do you plan on it?
So yes, but not in the same kind. So right now I do mostly advisory, and so I'm an advisor to a couple of different game studios at the moment and the games that they're designing. And one that I have more of an active role in is it's a VR educational game. But again, the game industry is very slow moving, in that it takes a long time uh, to write the. I mean, it's very much like creating a movie.
Mm-hmm.
The story comes first, then the storyboards, and then the design and um, the images and everything, and then the coding is one of the last pieces. And I mean, just see how long it took for Red Dead Redemption 2 to come out.
Yeah,
It
that
was
took a long time.
they and so games are so one of the game projects I'm working on probably won't even be out for another 4 or 5 years. So they're a very, very long tail.
Yeah, I'm assuming you can't talk too much about future big projects like that coming out then, right?
No, because I mean, even like at this early stage, like even if I were to tell you something, it probably would be so different by the time it comes out
Mm-hmm.
that you'd be like, what about that thing she talked about? Yeah, things change so much that um, at early phases, they don't even look close to what they were.
Yeah. Are you involved? Like, have you? What was the most like inspiring thing you've learned that got you into wanting to work with gaming companies or studios? Was it programming in general, or like how did you get into that? Because I'm kind of curious.
So that was actually, again, so I loved those Infocom games.
Mm-hmm.
And they were really rich stories. Like it was a world that you had. And so when I was by myself programming those satellites in the Navy, um, I had a lot of downtime by myself in a room. And so me and that computer, when we were waiting for uh, the satellite to reboot, which would take a long time, I just started writing a story. So I started writing a game on my own uh, that then turned into something that about 500 people ended up playing, which at the time was huge because there was no internet. It was just dial-up modems.
Yeah.
And it, I created a it, multi-user dungeons, or MUDs were the games back then that multiple people played. And so I created one of those from scratch, based on a storyline. Everything at the time was based on Lord of the Rings, and I
Yeah.
did one based on Star Trek. And somebody logged in, saw this. They were at a game company, and they offered me a job.
That's pretty cool. Like I've been a gamer all my life pretty much. I got a game no, it started with my dad's like Game Boy that he used to play. And that was like my first actual thing I used to play when I was probably like 3 or 4 even. Then my first actual console was GameCube, and I've wanted to get into programming and making my own games, so I got into that like in ninth or 10th grade, and I realized this will take a long time, so
Yeah.
I didn't have the attention span to be able to program and write code and make my own game.
Well, so I mean, there's things, like you could use like Game Fruit
Mm-hmm.
to like for an engine for games. You don't have to uh, code the sprites yourself.
Yeah,
But the most important thing about a game is the story,
yeah,
and having that backstory and understanding what your character's motivations are and why they're doing the thing they're doing. Like, why is Mario going after the princess all the time? Like, why? What keeps him going? Why is he fighting through so many levels? Why are the Hammer Brothers like? What's their deal? Like, why are they there all the time? And like, why is Donkey Kong so angry? Like, and why does Frogger really need to cross the road? Like every one of these games has a motivation. I
mm-hmm.
think Wreck-It Ralph is an excellent series of movies to that delves into that without you even realizing. I mean, as a game designer, that those movies are awesome. Um, but the real the real thing about game design that you have to understand is the like I said, the visuals are and the coding are the last part that comes to it. You have to, I mean, you can just like sketch out a storyboard of what your whole backstory is. So you'll probably like, I recommend to you and everyone watching, just go through some of those Infocom games, those
Mm-hmm.
old choose your own adventure style games, and see the rich world that was created with just text. And they're really hard to win. Don't use the cheats. Just go
Yeah.
through them on your own, and then once you really get the hang of that, then play some Need for Speed and compare the two, and you'll see they're not that far apart.
Yeah. I'm kind of moving. I'm sort of backtracking to a thing you traveling and seeing the pyramids and concentration camps. Like, how many countries have you been to? I'm curious.
You know, I was gonna add that up the other day. I know it's over 60.
Over
I,
60?
yeah, I don't know the exact number right now,
Okay,
but
cuz
I've been to every continent except Antarctica so far.
and you're going there soon, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah, cuz my one of my top goals is to be able to visit 50 countries by the time I'm 30. So, I've started a list of the countries I want to visit next, just off of suggestions from people on Twitter. So I kind of want to look back at that right now. If I can find it, I'll find it later. But it's kind of random. I remember because I've been talking to people from Nigeria, and they want
Oh
me to
yeah.
come visit Lagos in Nigeria, and one or two of them even offered to show me around and keep me safe and make sure I don't go to like the bad places in Nigeria. So I want to go there eventually, and I also want
Yeah.
to go to Switzerland and Spain and
Hmm.
China. I think those are the main countries I want to go to.
Awesome. Yeah, I haven't been to China. I've been to Hong Kong. The I just it hasn't worked out visa wise for me to go to China yet,
Mm-hmm.
because you just need a long amount of time for a visa, and I generally travel last minute. Um, but yeah, I want to go to China as well. I was just in Africa a couple, like in January. I did not go to Nigeria, but I do love going to Africa, and I'm going to be in Africa for my honeymoon as well. So it's a beautiful country.
What's the
I mean, continent.
yeah? What's your favorite place you've been to?
Mauritius.
Mauritius.
It's an island in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
It's there's the Seychelles, the Maldives, and Mauritius, and Réunion, and Madagascar, where the cartoony
Yeah.
animals are. And Mauritius is this very tiny island, and it's absolutely gorgeous, and the people are super nice.
What's what's the next country besides Antarctica you want to go to?
Um, so that that's I mean, I want to go to India and China, but they take a bit of planning, and I generally don't have much time. So
Yeah.
those are definitely on the list for me. I think, uh, yeah. I mean, I guess those India and China.
Are most of your has most of your traveling been like with for work, or how much of it is just for vacation or having fun?
So um, I have structured my travel so that it is all for business. But I do take time out of every trip to have at least one vacation day. So everywhere I go, I have at least one day to explore.
Have you been to have you been to every country in Europe, or
Yes.
just every country? Well, which one was your favorite?
Well, sorry. I have not been to all of the new countries that were created after the fall of the USSR, but I've been to
Yeah.
all of the original European countries from when I was a kid, and I'm working my way through all of the newer ones.
Yeah. What was your favorite country out of Europe?
My favorite European country, um, that's tough. I think Poland. I think
Poland.
Poland. I love people are just so nice in Poland, um, and the food is great there, and the architecture is just so different from one place to another.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then I got to give it up for England because I went to school there.
Oh, you did.
Yeah.
Where at?
At Cambridge.
Oh, Cambridge.
Yeah.
Forgot. I visited. I don't know why I can't remember, but I went to one of the universities there just to visit. But I've only been to 5 countries,
Hmm.
but Ireland is definitely my favorite. It's the prettiest to
It
me,
is
and I love
beautiful.
everyone there.
And don't say you've only been to 5 countries because that's
Most people
four.
don't even get a chance to even
Yeah,
go to one.
that's four more than 90% of Americans.
Yeah, but I say only because my goals are kind of big for traveling.
And you'll do it.
Yeah, I'm confident I will. What was? Do you have any like in particular favorite memories or funny traveling stories?
So I used to travel. I lived in Mexico for a few years, and when I was living there, um, I would travel with my cat back and forth. And Mexican customs is really strange. Like especially when you're living there, they check everything when you're a resident versus when you're a tourist. So with the cat, they would inspect his bag uh, more than us sometimes. But so one time, like we're declaring him going through, and they're like, okay, what is that? And we're like, it's a cat. And they're like, no, no, what breed of cat? And we're like, well, he happened to be a Bengal, but there's no word for that in Spanish.
Oh,
So we said leopardito, which is little leopard,
yeah.
and then they're like, and so they slowly zipped the bag back up and handed him to
They thought it was an actual like leopard.
leopard.
Do you still like travel with a pet?
No, I don't have any
No.
pets anymore.
Okay. Do you plan on getting
No.
like a? Okay. They're a lot of work.
Yeah. My fiance's allergic, so.
Oh, that'll do it. um, I feel like we've gone over everything I wanted to talk about, unless there's. I'm actually curious. What countries do you recommend I should put on my list?
Um, so, um, my one of my favorite countries is Morocco. So if it's not on your list, definitely go
Yeah,
there.
my mom has been there actually
Oh,
too.
that's great. I love the United Arab Emirates. So the UAE is a great country to go to. It's a good introduction into the Middle East, and it will really open up your eyes, especially as a Westerner, um, to what the Middle East is,
Yeah,
because we have a completely wrong idea of what it's like over there. So the
yeah,
UAE is great. Um, Japan, I'm sure that's already on your list,
yeah,
but um, Singapore and Hong Kong are great, and Australia and New Zealand should be on there.
yeah. All right, I appreciate that.
I bet
Uh,
they were already are all on your list though.
um, Surprisingly, only New Zealand was on
Ah,
there. I haven't put too many on my list. I've just been going little by little, focusing each one in particular. Not trying to get overwhelmed with all the other countries have listed.
gotcha.
But I appreciate it. I appreciate you being on the show. I don't know. I feel like I learned a lot from you. Hopefully, my viewers did too. I want you to come back again because, uh, you're cool,
Oh, thank you.
and I
Well,
think you're inspiring a lot of people doing what you
thank you.
do.
Well,
So
I had a great time.
thank you for coming on again.
Hey,
Um, was there anything else you wanted to talk about in particular? Is that it?
no, just everybody just keep going with whatever your dreams are, and remember, there's always tomorrow, to keep coming up with something else to do.
Yeah. I'll put her links to her website and Twitter in the description of the video and on SoundCloud. So thank you guys for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe. Have a good day, guys.